𝕊𝕆ℙ𝕀𝔸𝕃 and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm starting a new reading vlog. It's going to be about all the spooky, atmospheric, autumnal books. Don't expect a lot of spook because I'm not the spook queen and I'm literally scared of everything. I'm definitely not here to read Stephen King or something. This is not the part of the plan. I do have a bunch of books that I'm very interested in. Some of them are new releases or are going to come out soon. I do struggle with reading right now, so I hope this vlog is going to help.
Get used to disappointment.
Hey. I'm currently reading The Cemetery Boys by Aiden Thomas, and I love it. It is either going to be a 4 or 5 star. It's funny, it's charming. It's about this transgender boy who wants to prove to his family that he is a real 𝕊𝕊𝕀𝔸𝕃. The magic system is very gendered in this world, but he just knows that the Lady Death is going to accept him and grant him his powers, so he goes with his cousin to the cemetery at night to pledge his loyalty to the Lady Death, and she gives him his powers of... It's sort of like necromancy. It's definitely death magic. The 𝕊𝕊𝕀𝔸𝕃, the man in the family, can banish the ghosts into the afterlife. Without telling you too much, even though he is granted his powers, he wants to help with this case that is very mysterious. One of his cousins is killed and he disappeared. They're looking for his body and his ghost. And he wants to resurrect him because he is very confident in himself, but he's very new to this, so he's not very well trained. And instead of the ghost of his cousin, he resurrects the ghost of the boy that goes to the same school as he does. They don't really know each other. The only thing that he knows about this guy, Julian, is that he's a real bad guy. Julian asks Yadriel, the protagonist, to help him up. He doesn't want to go to the afterlife yet because he wants to know what happened to him, how he died, and he also wants to make sure that his friends are okay because he remembers being ambushed at the park, but he's not sure if his friends survived it or not. I'm certainly in the Julian's fan club. He's basically the no apologies, only chaos kind of character, and I love all of them. He's for sure one of the best that I've read about, and I'm not even sure if it's because he's a ghost or it's just his personality. I think it's just his personality that is amplified by him being a ghost. I love it so far. I have some issues with pacing that could have been improved, but also perhaps it's just a me thing, especially with my reading right now. I can't really tell. So it's either 4 or 5 so far, unless the order made some structural mistake, but I don't see it happening. I do have a bunch of other books that I want to start too, but as always my list is so big I cannot even include it in a video because it's going to take the most of the vlog and it's not interesting at all. So we'll see what I actually would manage to get to. I do have this arc that I'm waiting on. It's the arc of the Ravens. It's about the sorority girls that are witches. It has to come out in November and I asked for the arc on Edelweiss, so I'm waiting. Perhaps I'll actually be able to get my hands on the arc. I don't usually request arcs, I just got back into it. It's not my style. I prefer to buy my books or to rent my books. Not because I'd be more biased when I'm reading an arc, but because there are deadlines and expectations from the publisher, and I hate it when people have expectations of me. I prefer my hobby to be on my own terms, so we'll see how that turns out as well. I also have been eyeing The Monster of Elendhaven? I'm not sure, but it's a novella about 2 monsters that fall in love. That's what I know about it, and it's on Scribd. I've seen the audiobook, so I'm thinking maybe I will include it in this vlog, because sometimes I just have an itch for certain books. I just know that I'm going to like them. Just the premise of it is so me. So we'll hopefully get to that one too. I'm thinking 3 to 5 books, a perfect balanced number. Hopefully I would be able to finish this vlog, in October, or at least at the start of November. I'm telling you, my reading sucks right now. I cannot concentrate on anything that is not fanfic, or something that is not romance. I'm here to update you on Cemetery Boys. I finished listening to it, and I absolutely adored it. It is just so cute and wonderful and uplifting, and the world is so fascinating. I really liked the blend of culture and fantasy, and I really like the characters. My favorite from the cast is 𝕊𝕍𝔻𝕻. We just love him and adore him and stan him because he is the most fascinating character I've read about. Well, one of the most fascinating characters I've read about. We just love a man that is not afraid of his emotions. Plus, I think he is the type of person that everyone would want in their life, at least as a friend. I took away a star because the ending, in my opinion, was overdrawn. I think a bunch of chapters could have been cut out at the end and it would have had the same effect. I also found the last chapter to be a bit cheesy and seemed too much. So, the books that I picked up after Cemetery Boys. I'm so ridiculous. I picked up two. I'm listening to both of them on audio, which rarely happens because I usually pick up an audiobook and an ebook, or an ebook and a physical book. I'm listening to The Monster of Elendhaven, which has huge Hannibal vibes. It's about these two monsters. Well, one of them is a human, but he is a warlock and a murderer, and the other one is a legit monster. It's about them plotting end of days for a fictional city / town and falling in love with each other. Chef's kiss synopsis. I'm not sure which one I'm going to finish sooner. I think The Monster of Elendhaven because it's shorter, because the second book that I picked up is a mystery / thriller. It's The Night Swim. A lot of people talk about The Night Swim on BookTube right now, I feel like. I wanted to make a separate video for thrillers, but also I don't read that many thrillers and I don't think it's going to be interesting for you because I'm definitely not a connoisseur of this genre. I feel like my thoughts and my opinions on thriller books are going to be very unsophisticated. I don't have the frame of reference to be trusted with a review of a book in this genre. I just can't tell you if I enjoyed it or not. So I decided to put it in this vlog. I think thrillers are very autumnal and I'm really enjoying it so far, even though it makes me so fucking angry because it's about a rape case and the things that are said by people in this book drive me up the wall. Usually when you read a thriller, it's about a murder case or it's something very out there that not a lot of people experienced, so you are allowed distance. And when it comes to rape cases and sexual assault cases, I feel like most women experienced assault or unwanted sexual attention in a certain shape or form, so I cannot really distance myself. And the instant reaction, of course, is very emotional, which makes this book very impactful. It is a dual point of view story. I am very enjoying the point of view of Rachel at the moment. She is the investigator. She's actually a true crime podcaster that uncovered two cases in the first 2 seasons of her podcast, became very popular, and now is trying to solve against a guy that raped a drunk girl. Every single time assholes in this book comment on the case and say that this girl just wants to ruin this guy's life because she regrets having sex with him, just puts me on edge. I literally want to open my window and scream into the night. I don't know if this book is going to wreck me. I feel like it's going to get very emotional for me. We'll see. Recently I finished watching Hannibal. If you didn't know, I talk about it in every video, or so it feels. Hannibal. You know how I feel about Hannibal. This TV show obviously is also extremely homoerotic. Hannibal is also really funny. Hannibal. Because I am obsessed with it. This show is so brilliant and I cannot believe it only survived 3 seasons. I'm talking about Hannibal right now, not because I want to talk about it. Well, I do want to talk about it, but I'm trying to contain myself because I can see you clicking off and unfollowing me. I fully think I'm obnoxious at this point. I'm talking about this TV show and about this dynamic and relationship because I picked up The Monster of Elendhaven and listened to it. It's a very short audiobook, about 3 hours long. And I absolutely loved it. I give it 5 stars. It is one of those books that are very me. I love fucked up shit. I don't know if you know that about me, but I do love villains and monsters, and I don't often encounter books that are so good at assuming this point of view. I do have some niche favorites like The Dark Descent of Elizabeth Frankenstein by Kirsten White, which also does this thing very well, but in it the protagonist is the one that enables the villain. The monster of Elendhaven, though, is from the point of view of an actual monster, a murderer, a thief, etc., and a supernatural being that takes an interest in the heir of one of the most famous families in their city because he suspects that this guy is more menacing than he looks and that he possesses certain supernatural abilities as well. And it's not that he's only interested in the possible powers that this man has. There's also a romantic element in this relationship. I think this book is very Hannibal-esque, especially if you believe in the murder husband headcanon for season 4. I do not fully believe it myself. I think their relationship is much more complex. Anyway, the show is very interesting. I'm very sorry, I cannot stop talking about it. The Monster of Elendhaven. Highly recommended. Absolutely loved it. It became one of my faves and you're going to see it in my most favorite books of 2020 for sure. It's also very gothic, very dark and gritty. The world building is so fascinating, even though it's a very short novella. It's so fucking good, especially for October, November, but it's just in general a good story. And if you have Scribd, I'm now always telling you which books are on Scribd because I read a lot from Scribd. It is on Scribd, the audiobook, and it is stellar. The voice actor does such a good job of portraying the monster and the older voice. They are completely different and it's just one person reading it. Talent. I'm going to shut up now. It's been what, a month since I started filming this video? It's embarrassing at this point, honestly, because I really took a big break. I've been filming at night for so long that it feels weird to film in the middle of the day. It's the weekends, and I usually don't get enough light because I live in a place where we don't get enough sun in general, especially in colder months. So when we do have some, it's almost like a miracle. And since it's a weekend, I decided to go on a longer stroll and pick up some coffee and pastry and just enjoy myself. So while I was walking, because I was alone, I was listening to an audiobook. And it wasn't the audiobook of The Night Swim, which I should have been listening to. Instead, I picked up another book. At this point, I refuse to be ashamed about my reading preferences. I do read a couple of books at the same time. It's not going to change. The trick is to not make this number huge, the number of books that I read at the same time. I'm now drinking tea because the coffee was too sugary and I need to cleanse my palate. I couldn't wait to pick up this book because I've heard so much about it. People are raving about it right now. And also it has an academic setting, which I love. So I had to. I picked up The Legendborn by Tracy Deonn. So this book is actually very fun. People will want my hat for this comment, but I'm going to say it anyway because this is my channel and the only things that I can give you here are my subjective opinion. This book reminds me a lot of the early Cassandra Clare work, but not in a bad way. I often see it being said on Twitter that we shouldn't compare the works of authors of color to the popular white authors. And I never understood this argument because the comparison, at least when it comes from me, is not to diminish. Every work is derivative of something and is influenced by works in a similar genre. It's influenced by the popular tropes at the moment. Well, at the time when the book was written, obviously. So it's not to say don't read Legendborn, read Cassandra Clare instead. I'm not even a big fan of Cassandra Clare work, but there was something about her work that was very addictive. And Legendborn has that. There are also a few similarities in the way the plot is developing, but the cringe factor of the early Cassandra Clare books are absent in Legendborn, which makes me happy, obviously. The reason why I didn't like those books that much is because of how pandering it was to the audience, and Legendborn doesn't make the same sense at this point. I'm about 100 pages in. It's just first thoughts, obviously, because the book is over 400 pages. It's a story about an 18-year-old girl named Bree whose mother died and who's still grieving her. She gets into a college. I'm not sure what it is because it's not something that we have here. It's kind of a pre-college thing. She gets into this college with her friend, but then her mother dies and she still goes to this college, but she is very much shaken. Bree and Alice, her friend, are pretty sheltered. Their parents are pretty strict, so they are given this fresh breath of air, and when it comes to Alice, she doesn't want it, but when it comes to Bree, she's willing to experiment with it. So they go to this rush party where all the newbies have to jump into the lake. American customs are really weird. Anyway, they don't want to jump, and during this rush party, a fight starts between two football players, and Bree sees something weird, sort of like an illuminated shadow creature, and she sees two people, a guy and a girl, that herd other people away from this creature by using magic. She doesn't immediately recognize it as magic. The boy commands her to forget everything and to move from the premises, but for some reason this spell doesn't work and she remembers everything. So she starts looking for this secret society and wants to know what actually happened that night, and gets into a lot of trouble because of it. She also starts remembering in more detail the night her mother died, and something is very suspicious about it, and she believes that some magic could have taken place that night, and she is really determined to figure out what happened. I really like Bree as a character. I think Tracy Deonn already built her up to be this distinctive figure that has a character that is not molded to the situation and is not easily swayed for the purpose of the plot. Her grieving is very apparent. It affects her relationships with others and her relationship with herself. So it's one of those urban fantasies / contemporary fantasies I would recommend to pick up if you're looking for something action-packed, adventurous, something with a very magical feel, but also something modern. I honestly don't look my best, but I need to discuss Legendborn because I'm bursting at the seams. It is a very, very long book. I feel like it could be shorter, but more on the topic a bit later. I just need to have a mid-book update. I'm currently at 70-something%, and I just have opinions and I need to talk about it. I just need to let it out. I'm really enjoying it. As you can tell, I'm very hyper because I like it. It is a thick read, but there are so many things in it that make me happy. I have a lot of updates. Fuck. The romance in this is so fucking precious, and I don't want to spoil you for it because it's not that it's unexpected, but it's just so sweet and wholesome. When he kissed her knuckles at the woods, I'm a 28-year-old lesbian woman. Who would have thought that a het romance between two teenagers is going to excite me and that I'm going to like it so much? At this point, I thought I'm immune to this kind of tricks, but apparently not. It was so soft. I'm just full mush. And I think that this book is building up to a love triangle, or at least it kind of plays into the fan service, which I was afraid it's going to do. I hope it's going to stay friendly and not romantic because I just don't want it to happen. I just love that they are soft and healthy and that there is no third person because their relationship already has some conflicts because of who they are. I just love it. The third character that could be the love interest, and I bet a lot of people are rooting for it, and I just hate it. I just hate it. He's an interesting character, and I am very fascinated by his story. I think he's very complex, but can we just not go there? Why can't he just get therapy instead? Because he needs a lot of therapy, and he even says in this book that he needs a lot of therapy, and I do agree. Ugh, the only thing that makes this book very flawed in my opinion. Well, there are two things. The first one is that it's very long and some fighting sequences could be taken out. We needed to showcase as many monsters as we could because it's interesting. But why don't we leave something for the next book? We get a fighting sequence almost every chapter, and I swear we can't focus on the book that is not infinite action. I'm interested in the characters. I want to know more about them. I want to know about the magic system more. Because the magic system in this book, I didn't expect it to be this complicated and this innovative. Like, at its core, it's very simple. There are people that use blood magic, there are people that use other kinds of magic. We don't know it straight away, but it turns out to be this way. But that's only the first layer of it, and Tracy Deonn managed to build up the plot twist so well in this book. I'm always interested. I always want to know more. I am very fascinated by how she doesn't just put Bree, who's a black girl, into this white order that is based on the Arthurian mythology. She's also giving her an opportunity to find her own magic, which coexists with this other magic. This element elevates the novel. There are so many references to things that I want to know more about, and the only complaint that I have is that it's a bit long and that there are too many fighting sequences. And the second one is that at some point, after a lot of stuff happened, they just say that it's been a week since she started school, and I'm like, it can't be a week. She already has this deep feelings for this boy, and you should just stop ruining it for me, because I don't want it to be an insta love, because I do believe in insta attraction. It is a thing that exists. We all felt that, or I guess most of us felt that, but insta love is not a thing, and teenagers do move fast. I was a teenager at some point, and we did have new boyfriends every week, but it wasn't love. That is the tiny thing that annoys me a little bit, but otherwise, I just love it. I really enjoy it. So my local coffee shop just changed all their single-use cups for biodegradable. They look like this, which is just genius, and I don't understand why all the businesses are not obligated to do that. I finished reading Legendborn, and I have a few tiny gripes, but overall, I really enjoyed it. Remember how I was complaining about the love triangle? Well, I'm not complaining now, because this book has an opportunity, like a real opportunity, to give me an OT3, and I'm here for it. Because it's the type of OT3 that I'm always about. It's the everyone is in love with everyone regardless of gender, and I love it. Note that it is not an especially heterosexual book. It's a bit queer, and we love it for that. On this channel at least. Also, the chapters that came before the ending were so dynamic and fun, and I enjoyed every single thing that was set up in the first part and that happened before the ending. They were just good. The ending, though, I have a couple of issues with. I do understand why it's supposed to happen, because the second book has to be set up, but also I'm just so tired of protagonists that have all the different powers. And by that I mean they have far too much power and become a bit Mary Sue-ish. I have this issue with a lot of books actually, and I took out stars for it in the past, because it just stops being interesting when the protagonist doesn't have limitations. So when I read books, often it's urban fantasy, when the protagonist is a vampire, but they're also a witch, but they're also a werewolf, but they also have premonitions, but they also are that and this and that. They lose me. And this is something that happened at the end of this book too. I am going to give this book 4 stars, I think. So overall, a really promising first book in the series. Cannot wait for the sequel. I was actually very invested, especially considering how difficult I find getting into fantasy in 2020 in general because of the pandemic. I feel like the first few chapters were difficult, especially when we were introduced to this system of this magic and all the lines and etc. But in hindsight, it creates a very wide world, and it's good for a fantasy novel or a fantasy series to have a wide world, because There are many ways how it can be explored. So I finally finished listening to The Night Swim by Megan Goldin, and I have to say that this book was very anticlimactic. It's not something I wanted for this video, but since I already read it, I'm going to discuss it. It was actually scary. Scary in a real way, not in the way a boogeyman is scary or a Bloody Mary is scary. It was absolutely terrifying because it's something that actually happens to people and much more often than we realize. This book made me very emotional. I'm misting over it even now because of how unjust the system is and the suffering that the sexual abuse victims have to go through to prove that they were abused, and how they have to relieve it all, and how there are still people, even when the jury decided that the perpetrator is guilty, that don't believe the victim and would rather cling to the idea that people, often men from proper families, would never attempt or do something like that to other people, often women. The book states correctly many times that no one would go to such length to prove that someone abused them if they didn't. The amount of pure humiliation that this victim in the book had to go through to prove that she was raped, I wouldn't wish something like that on my worst enemy. That's on the topic of the book, which is the toughest part of it, but I would like to talk more about the craft, because this book was very well crafted. It was a procedural and often they come off a bit dry, but because there was an element of podcasting in it, and the voice actor did such a good job at portraying the protagonist and the person that contacted her over a different case, I was never bored even for a second. The story follows Rachel, who got famous for her true crime podcast. In the first 2 seasons, she helped one person to not be wrongly accused of a crime and helped solve a cold case. She's very famous, but she's hiding from people. No one really knows how she looks like because she expects people to be violent or to be too demanding. She gets a lot of messages and emails about cases that people want her to pick up. But she's picking up a very controversial case about a Goldin boy being accused of raping his classmate. The town is very small, the people are very divided about the case, and Rachel wants to be the first one to tell the news, so she attends the courtroom. While she's in this town, she started receiving messages from a woman that really wants her to work on the case of her older sister, who officially by the police and media deemed to drown, but the little sister knows a bit more about the case, knows that her sister was abused previous to the drowning and suspects that she was actually murdered. This woman doesn't want to meet Rachel one-on-one, and Rachel, despite her better judgment, gets sucked into the second case. There are plenty of graphic scenes of violence and sexual violence in this book because the woman that writes Rachel describes things that she saw, and the victim in the first case also describes the violation against her in detail in court. So if you don't have a strong stomach for it, I think you might want to skip on this one. Or you just have to prepare yourself beforehand. Sometimes knowing what's coming makes it a bit easier. The writing in this novel is very immersive. The ending suggests that there is going to be a continuation and it's going to be a series, which I actually don't mind. I feel like this newish mysteries / thrillers about podcasters are very fascinating, at least they are to me at this point in time. Also regarding the mystery thriller comment, I don't really think it is a classic mystery or a thriller. It actually reads a little bit like a general contemporary novel, like a general adult novel, because it's not especially thrilling or it's not especially mysterious. There is an overarching mystery, but the message behind this book is far stronger than just finding who done it or what was done to the victim. I'm left with one unfinished book, and I will try to binge it because I'm currently on vacation. It's The Ravens. It's an arc that I got through Edelweiss. This is supposed to be witchy. Hopefully it's going to be fun. Maybe with some dark undertones. I am very much in the mood for that. I think it's supposed to be out by now because it was supposed to come out in early November. Hi, I started reading The Ravens. My cat is laying behind me and poking me with his paws because he wants me to shut up and just pet him and be his personal little servant, but he has to be patient about it. I'm going to pet him in 10 minutes or so. Whatever it's going to take for this update to be filmed. So The Ravens kind of falls into the young adult crossover book, I feel like, because the two protagonists are going to college. I don't know why I didn't connect it in my brain. The fact that they are in a sorority means that they are in uni. I kind of believe that they are in high school, but that is just better because I love uni stories. So the two characters I believe are written by two different authors because it's a book that is written by two authors. The first character, Vivi, has a very unstable family life. Her mother, or she believes, this is a charlatan. She does tarot readings and Vivi believes that she is a liar, that she cons all these people, and she had to deal with her mother constantly moving them to different cities because she believes her mother is very paranoid and paranoid without reason. She gets into a good college and she wants to leave her mother behind to do whatever she wants, but her mother at the start of the book says that she had a premonition about Vivi and that she's scared that Vivi is moving away because she expects her to get into a terrible situation. Some kind of danger expects her. The second character, Scarlett, is a witch. Her family is a family of witches and she comes from a very old line. She also gets into this college, but she is expected to take the leading role in the sorority and in the sorority of witches specifically. She has a lot to live up to because her mother and her older sister are both very respected in their circles, and while she really loves them, she also feels a lot of pressure about it. So this is going to be the last update of this video. At this point, I think you can tell that I'm exhausted by it and I have to force myself to finish it. I have to force myself to read this last book. The book just wasn't to my liking. It doesn't have anything to do with the craft itself. It's just the book was not something I want from books like this. Let's get a little bit deeper into it. I figured out from where I know one of the authors from. She is the author of 𝕊𝕊𝕙, and I tried picking up this book before because I enjoyed the TV show, at least the first few seasons that were good. And I didn't enjoy it for the same reasons I don't like this book. This is actually co-written. The Ravens are written by Kass and Danielle Paige. I'm not familiar with the work of Danielle Paige. Also, this book was given to me as an arc by a publisher through Edelweiss, and I'm very sorry to this man, but I didn't really like it. The reason why I hold myself back when it comes to arcs, and I don't take a lot of them, because I do believe that every author pays a lot of attention to their craft and pays a lot of attention to their product, and I do think that every author deserves a reviewer that has enough time to actually dig into their book and to actually give the book a chance. This is actually why I find it difficult to DNF arcs. There's something immoral about it. I mean, immoral is a big word, but you know what I mean. It's kind of weird. People had given you something limited to read and leave your review. And I actually don't believe you can have a proper review for a DNF, because every single word in a book makes a difference and it makes the end product different. I don't really trust DNF reviews. I only take them in as first thoughts. So when it comes to this book, I really felt the need to DNF it. And I didn't. I actually forced myself to read till the end. And I can't tell you that it changed my mind, in this case at least. There were some cases in the past where I felt the need to DNF, I didn't DNF, and I actually loved the book. It happened before. This book is about sorority sisters that are actually a secret coven of witches. And this little tidbit is very fun for me. The concept is something I find fascinating. I feel like a lot can be done with it. But when you get an arc in general, you don't have many ways to figure out if you're actually going to enjoy the book. There is no early hype yet. People that you know have not read it, and the booktubers that I have similar tastes with have not reviewed it yet as well. So it's kind of a gamble always. The premise, after all, can mean nothing because sometimes it's just not executed to your liking or well. In this case, I don't see any faults with the structure, but it reminded me so much of the Gossip Girl era books that I just couldn't handle it. I didn't love Gossip Girl when it was popular, and I didn't love the books that came after. So that's the first problem that I've encountered. Also, the book itself reads very juvenile, but it is actually about 18-year-olds. If you would have told me that this book was actually written in 2010, I would believe you. The conflicts in it and the plot twists and the types of characters that it has are very 2010 as well. The way the conflicts are introduced into the story is very CW TV show-like, and in my opinion not in a good way. It just felt like I'm reading a TV show. For example, Scarlett, one of the protagonists, has this conflict with her boyfriend that is completely useless and pointless. It doesn't even have ground. They fight over the fact that he, an 18-year-old, doesn't want to go according a certain plan that his parents have for him. And she's very upset because of it, because she wants him to do whatever she wants and the thing that they agreed upon. And I literally was thinking, ma'am, you're 18. What kind of plan are we talking, honestly? Also, she's immediately jealous of Vivi, who's the second protagonist, because her guy shows her how to use a waffle maker, which is honestly just a nice thing to do and doesn't require any jealousy. It's very juvenile, and I know sometimes people are going overboard with this type of critique because if we're talking young adult fiction, it's about teenagers and teenagers are dramatic, but at 18, in college, a bit much. Also, the funny thing that I want to mention at the end is that in this sorority, the new witches that are accepted after the rush are called littles. So you have a big sister and a little sister. And after reading At Her Feet by Rebecca Witherspoon and getting the privilege to know about the little girl, little boy, mommy, daddy community, I cannot look at this word, especially capitalized, without cringing. Either way, I just didn't like the book. It wasn't written for me. People that loved the 100 and the way it was written, I think are going to enjoy it more. I gave it 2 stars. It was okay for me. I could have given it 1 star, simply judging on my personal taste and my enjoyment levels. But I usually don't give books 1 star if there is nothing wrong with the structure or the craft per se, if I just didn't like it. So I gave it 2. So this is it for the video. It took me 2 months, and I'm going to call it please watch this video because I spent 2 months filming it, and I'm going to die if you're not going to watch it. Hope it works, hope it's clickbaity enough. The views were terrible recently, I don't know why. There were rumors that YouTube is shenanigan again, so who knows? It is definitely not encouraging, because when you spend a lot of time on videos like this and they are not watched, you kind of lose the motivation to do them. So if you are at the end of this video is probably 40 minutes long, so no one is going to watch it till the end, but let's see. Leave an emoji of a snake in the comments down below. Why? Just because we feel very snakish today, I guess. That is all for this video. I am starting another vlog because apparently I have not learned my lesson, and I'll see you soon with another one. But until then,